Okay, this meeting is called to order and the recording may begin. This meeting of the Economic Development and Employment Committee of Brooklyn County Board 2 is called to order and is being recorded for public access and archiving in accordance with New York State open meeting law. It is the practice of CB2. Okay, hold on one second. It is the practice of CB2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee members' cameras on. Public attendees are also encouraged to leave the cameras on, particularly if you're given the floor to speak. All attendees, please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. To maintain an appropriate discussion and voting process, I will make it known when and which topics are open for comment by committee members, board members at large, and the general public. If you have a question that falls outside of public comment time, please type your questions in the chat panel and we will address them as time permits. You may also email the district office at any time outside of these meetings. We are committed to providing access to all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitations. Okay, hold on a second. If you require accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district office 72 hours before any public meeting. We ask that those speaking or presenting use plain language, speak at a moderate tone, and frequently ask if you're speaking loud enough. If presenting, read the title of every slide and describe any images on the slide, such as photos, graphs, and charts. The committee secretary will now conduct a roll call.
All right, we have Chair Bill Flanoy, Vice Chair Denise Peterson. I see Denise on here. Catherine Gelman, Secretary, that's myself. Ronald Cohen. I see you, Ron. Lindsay Einhorn. Hey, Lindsay. Oleg Geyser.
Yeah.
Hey, Oleg. Latrell Masso. Ciro Scala.
Yep.
Hey. Kate Yearwood Young. I see you, Kate. Maisha Morales. Okay, that's our roll call.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Denise is here. I couldn't remember if you said that you didn't see me.
No, no problem. I see you, Denise. You're all set.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, may I get an approval of the agenda, please? Ms. Einhorn, I need a second. Okay, Mr. Cohen, thank you. Okay, anyone who disapproves of the agenda? Okay. I also now need an approval of the minutes from October 2021. Ms. Gilman, once again, as always, very good. Okay. Mr. Scala, I need a second. Okay, Mr. Cohen. Okay. If there's any corrections that need to be made or any comments, please address it and send it into the board office. Okay. The first item on the agenda, okay, that I'll go to a quick discussion, and I'd like to bring this up because this is a topic that I think we'll also be looking at from the budget office, is Ms. Einhorn, could you discuss item 2, which is the Brooklyn County District 2 unemployment and business data updates?
Sure. Do I have presenting privileges, Taya? Hold on one second. Okay, this was harder than expected. The goal was to find unemployment data by zip code. That was not possible. The most reliable data is this from the Bureau of Labor Statistics from state. And so the other data for September and October, they provide revised data, but they provide very old data. I have to tell you, I spent several hours looking and haven't been able to find an open source that I am happy with, but we'll continue to look for next meeting. But I wanted to show you a little bit of the progression where New York State has seen some ups and downs over the last 6 months. So has New York City. I also want to be aware that the New York City unemployment rate is now more than double what the national rate is. And so looking at that, we're seeing that the recovery in large urban centers across the country has been much slower than that across the nation. And that's based on the tourism jobs, the service center, the service job related jobs. I can't find anything that breaks it down for the county, but I can also show you the numbers from last year. And when you look at the numbers from last year, it's very different than what we're seeing now. So we started last year in January of 2020 at 3.9% in Kings County. And now, and it went up to 18 and 19% during the first wave in June and July, and then came down to 12% by the end of the year. So we've really seen some spikes since COVID. And what we're seeing now is that it continues to come down, but that recovery has been slow. And since December of last year, it's gone from 12% down to 9.4%. So, and I'm sorry, in the county, we saw it go down from 12% to 11.6% over the last 6 months. And I don't have more recent data to show what's happening this fall for Kings County. So work in progress.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Einhorn. Appreciate that. I wanted to bring that into the discussion because I believe that New York City Independent Budget Office has some numbers that are a little more relevant. Okay, so with that, I'd like to begin the presentation. Okay, New York City Independent Budget Office, George Sweeting, Department Director. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, all. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a resident of Community Board 6, so just over the border from you folks. So, I spend a lot of time walking through your district. Let me start just quickly off of the point about the unemployment and how that's changed in recent months. I mean, what we just saw from Ms. Einhorn, is absolutely, what she described in terms of the really sharp increase in unemployment, or said the other way, the really sharp decrease in employment at the start of the COVID pandemic. It's an unprecedented fall. And New York City, as she indicated, is definitely lagging the rest of the country in terms of our recovery from it. We have a couple reports that are available on our website. I'd be happy to share them with you in a few minutes, that look not just at how we're recovering versus the US as a whole, but also industry by industry. And there are certain industries that where we've recovered more of our job losses than others. They're not really that surprising. I think you'd find it the same if you were looking, if you had the data for borough by borough. The sectors of the economy, such as leisure and hospitality, are still down about 20% from what they were right before the pandemic. Other sectors, such as finance, have actually recovered much of what was lost. They're in the upper 90s. And there's a whole range of different industries. I'd be happy to share that with people later if you have questions about that. But what I wanted to do tonight is just tell you a little bit about what IBO is and why we exist. IBO is a city agency. We're funded out of the regular city budget. We were created as a product of the 1989 Charter Commission, which certainly played a significant role in made a significant change in the role of the community boards, also in terms of land use. For IBO, the purpose was to create a somewhat more level playing field for everyone involved in the city budget other than the mayor. The mayor has the Office of Management and Budget at his disposal to do research analysis on the city's fiscal and economic condition. So the idea was to give people, other elected officials, the members of the city council, the borough presidents, the controller, the public advocate, and the community boards are all listed in the city charter as clients of the IBO. And the charter assigns us a number of reports that we have to do throughout the budget process. But it also says we are to take requests from our clients. Those can range from a quick help with looking up a number to studies, to requests for studies and analysis that become months or even years long projects. We did a lot of work, for example, around Atlantic Yards. Some of you probably are veterans of those battles and discussions. And we do a lot on. We take a lot of requests on economic development projects, whether they be sort of connected to rezoning or just more specific, one-offs for example, the new Yankee Stadium or Citi Field, the Barclays Center. So IBO is required to, or let me start with how we're organized. We're organized into 4 teams. One of them focuses on the city economy and tax revenues. And one of the things we're charged with in the charter is providing an independent tax forecast, so that it can serve as a benchmark when the mayor's office says taxes are going to be X. It's our job to provide a separate analysis, which may often indicate that they're underestimating potential tax revenues. Sometimes they're overestimating tax revenues. So we have a team that does that economic and revenue forecasting. We have a team that focuses almost exclusively on education, and we have our authority is not just under the city charter, but also under state education law. We are empowered to get information from the Department of Education on individual students and individual staff at the Department of Ed. And that puts us in a position to look not just at their spending, but also at outcomes, at how test scores are trending, how graduation rates are trending. Also, what's in their capital plan, where are they putting the seats? How does that compare with projections of what the need would be for seats in different community school districts. We also have a group that focuses on transportation, housing, and infrastructure. They cover all of those agencies. We have a group that looks at community and social services. So that's all of the, that's HRA, DHS, homeless services, DFTA, DYCD, and then also public safety. So police, fire, EMS, corrections is in there. And then we also have a small group that focuses on cities' debt and pensions and sort of the long-term issues there. So we're in a position to answer a lot of questions and to be helpful to our clients, which, as I said, include the community boards. For I think understandable reasons, we tend to get fewer questions from the boards, but we're always anxious to find ways to be helpful and be relevant. So I welcome this opportunity to speak with you all about what we do. If you go on our website, you'll see, I'm going to try to share these just so you can see what I'm talking about. we have a number of we have many reports on our website. One of them, two of them are these sort of guides to the regular budget and guides to a guide to the capital budget. And the idea here is to try to take the, so the city's budget is set up in a way that makes it hard to see what's going on in many cases. And so what we're trying to do is present it in an accessible, understandable way. These documents are, they're usually, I think they're usually less than 20 pages. We actually, one of the things we do is print them up in hard copy also, so that we could share them with your office, for example, if there would be interest in having them there for people, for citizens to pick up and get hopefully a good understanding of how the city budget works and how the city capital budget works. So those guides are there. There's also a lot of information on our website about just the we have the history of city revenues back to 1980 and the history of city expenditures by department and within department by unit of appropriation, which is an accounting category or layer really in the city budget, so that you can see how at an agency how things have changed over, that's now 40 years. So that goes back to 1980. We also have some very detailed historical data on Department of Education spending back to, I believe, somewhere in the mid-90s, where we track not just the city spending in the agency, but also state and federal spending. And we have a bit on sort of the programmatic areas in the Department of Ed. We also have a publication we call the Education Indicators, which provide a lot of information about test scores over time, graduation rates over time, just the demographic distribution of the city's school population, the Department of Ed population. There's some material there also on charters, because charters are public schools. I'm sure many of you know this, but they're not part of the Department of Education, but they are funded out of the city budget. And so we have some detail on that in our indicators. And then we have a really, at this point, a vast array of studies. Everything we do is on our website, which actually can admittedly make it a little hard to find what you're looking for sometimes. One of the things we have on there is a staff directory. And so if you're ever looking for information and you can't find it, a good way of getting it is to send an email to the person who covers that agency. And that's all listed on our website. And they'll get back to you with if they can help you find a particular report or set of reports if you're interested in some topic. But we're working to make the sort of chaos that's there on our publication pages a little more organized. We've got so much there that it's gotten a little out of hand. But anyway, we're trying to make that easier for people. And if you're having trouble, feel free to email the person you think is most likely to be covering that topic. So that's sort of what IBO does. I was going to talk a little bit about the current state of the budget, but maybe we should stop, and if you have any questions on what IBO is at the moment.
Yeah, Mr. Sweeting, what I would suggest, we've had a few people actually ask for examples of some of the things that you do. Do you have access to your budget options?
Tonight here? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Could you show a couple of those too? Because one of the things I
Sure.
liked about your agency is that you are neutral. You give the pros and the cons to any ideas that are out there. Okay, as far as suggestions for budgets, for saving options, and also for revenue options.
Yep.
And that'll give individuals an idea of what you actually do.
Okay, so this is the page for the budget options, and these are intended to be idea, if the city needed to either increase spending and wanted to pay for that increased spending without raising taxes, or just if the city needed to just cut spending because of a recession or some other budget stress, the options we have here would be one, would offer suggestions or ways that you could go about addressing those needs. And as the chair mentioned, one of the things about our reports is we don't take policy positions. We don't say this is what the city should do. What we'll say is we'll try to give you the best information we have about what's likely to happen in some particular situation. And we might wind up saying, if the city does this, then X is likely to happen. Or if the city does that, then Y is likely to happen. But what we don't do is say, and therefore X is better than Y, so you should do X. We leave that up to the people reading the reports and using the reports. In the budget options in particular, we do things, these are set up to be just single page. We cover something very quickly as an idea. That's not actually, this is one that is no longer relevant. So let me just go back, pick a different one. So this is an option that we did on, it's the suggestion is to reduce the number of hours that 311 service is available. 311 service is available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And realistically, there aren't that many calls that come in at 2 o'clock in the morning. Those that do are often, related to complaints about noise or, other things that verge on on being emergencies or things you call 911 on. So, it's a proposal to to shut down between midnight and 8 a.m. You would leave some kind of message taking service so that if people do call and they've got a complaint about their garbage collection, the message is taken and then it would be passed on to the Department of Sanitation when the staff comes back in. So the way we set these out is we describe what the proposal is, and then we tell you what we think the proponents, the supporters of this option would argue, and then we also show you what would likely be the arguments in opposition, so that you get a sense of there are a few things in budgets that are black and white. It's all about trade-offs. It's all about making choices between two different objectives. This one would save $6 million if you did it. We have other options, particularly on the tax side, that go up to $1 billion or more. We do estimates on if you made significant changes to the property tax or brought more income, for example, into the subject to the income tax, this one's unlikely to happen, but we put it in each year just because we think it's worth having a record of how much was lost to the city when the state took away our commuter tax. So, you know, our current estimate is that if you had the old commuter tax, we would get about 800, almost $900 million in tax revenue that was lost when they made that change. And again, we do the proponent, we tell you what the supporters would argue and what the opponents would argue. So there's a whole range of these options on both the spending side and on the revenue side.
Mr. Sweeting, if I could interrupt for just
Sure.
one moment to describe what these cards are. So what this is quite small. I can see
Okay.
it's small. So if you go on the website, you'll be able to download these cards, but the horizontal portion at the top is a very brief synopsis of the scenario. The column on the left is the pro argument, and the column on the right is the con argument. So the left says, this is why folks might want to do this restoration, and the folks on the column on the right is why folks might not want to do it. And that's all of the cards are laid out in a similar style.
Thank you. Yes, I can see that the print is pretty small here on my screen. So yes, and the budget options are one of our, I guess, most popular, or certainly most frequently clicked on links on the website. Okay, so I mean, one of the main responsibilities we have under the charter is to, I'm going to stop sharing here. So I can see more of you. Is to analyze the mayor's budget as it moves through the budget process. As you all know, the city uses a fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th. So, and the city, as a legacy of the 1970s fiscal crisis, is required to basically budget 4 times a year. And not only do we have to budget 4 times a year, but we have a budget horizon. We have to look at, the city has to look out over 5 years. It's the current year plus the next 4 years. That's a pretty unusual burden on a city. Most, there are very few are required to operate under such standards. And the first big, once the fiscal year gets going, usually in November, the mayor introduces his first modification to, or proposed modification to the adopted budget. And at that point, they've got, they've had a chance to reassess their revenue forecast. They've had a chance to see if there's any unexpected spending demands have emerged, and they'll make those adjustments in the first quarter modification. IBO is required in December to come out with what's called the fiscal outlook, and we're supposed to be setting the table for what are trying to look ahead and identify what are the fiscal challenges that the city is going to face as it adopts the next budget, the budget that's going to start in the following July. So we're working right now on our outlook report. We're working on our forecast. The mayor's first, let me go through the process first. So the next step in the budget process is the mayor produces his preliminary budget in January. We are required to produce an evaluation of the preliminary budget, both on the spending side and the revenue side, and make our own independent projection of what the fiscal condition will be. That comes out in March. Then the mayor comes out with his executive budget in April. We are required to analyze that budget and produce a report in May. And then the mayor and the city council begin their serious negotiations on shaping the final budget to be adopted by June 30. So we're just getting started with the review of the first quarter budget. The budget this year is really sort of distorted by COVID spending. There's a lot of money, federal money that's in there that is not going to recur. There's a lot for the current fiscal year, the 2022 fiscal year, and then it begins to fade out in 23, 24, and 25. So unlike most years, the current budget is the largest. Usually it grows over time. So the last budget is the largest. This year, the budget is, or as of November, the mayor is projecting a total budget of $103 billion. So we've crossed the $100 billion threshold. If you look at just the city, the part of that the city has to pay for with its own taxes and fees, it's about 69 billion. And the rest is state and federal aid. State aid, a lot of that is education money. About a third of the education budget comes from the state. The federal government in most years pays about 10 or 15%, and then the city pays the remaining half. This year, there's a lot of federal money in the education budget. We did a report recently looking at how much of that money actually you can count on after this year, and the answer is not much, because the federal law was written to say the money has to be spent in these years and you can't spend it after. One of the issues the city's going to have to face is the de Blasio administration has taken that money and used some of it, not all of it, but some of it, to create new programs or expanding programs. They've expanded the pre-K or the pre-K3 program. And once the federal money goes away, the city, assuming the city keeps the expanded program in place, they're going to have to find a way to fund that from other sources. So those are that's an example of the kinds of questions we discuss and raise in our reports on the budget. We'll also particularly focus on the revenue estimate that the city has put forward and compare that to our revenue estimate, which often differs significantly. We tend to be higher. I believe we're often more accurate too, although nobody gets revenue forecasting is a very difficult thing to do well. There's so many assumptions you have to make and so many unknowns, but we generally are closer to the mark.
Mr. Sweeting.
Complete. Yes.
Okay. One of the things I found very fascinating was two of the forecasts that were made. The one that was made March 2nd by Ronnie Lowstein. Okay. And also the forecast and revenue of the mayor's budget in February of 2021. I found those fascinating because they were coming out before we had any funding coming in, okay, from the federal government. Okay. Based on those numbers that I read in those reports, and based on the projections that you're looking forward, what can you comment on those reports? Because now they're a little bit dated. And I also noticed that you're mentioning that in 2022, we're going to have a surplus, if I read it correctly.
Yep.
And going forward, we're looking at deficits. Is
Yep.
that true?
That was our forecast then, and I expect it'll be similar to that this time again. I mean, if you want our most current forecast, you could look at our May report. You know, we haven't, you know, we're in the process of updating those numbers right literally as I speak, and we'll have those numbers done probably in about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Excuse me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but those reports I found very fascinating because they went into a lot of in-depth information. And one of the things I liked, also the resources that were available to us was the New York City by the numbers and also the public school indicators.
Right.
Okay, is it possible for you to show some of those actual information so that some of the chairs that are currently here can see that information?
I will try. Let's see here.
Because we currently have chairs from some of the other committees that are currently present. We have Barbara Zellinger. Sorry, I'm going to mispronounce their names. I'm sorry. But please, thank you.
Okay. Let's go here.
Ms. Mueller, could you introduce those chairs, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Let's see who I can see. I see Barbara Zoller-Gringer, it's the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. I see Carolyn Hubbard Kamenan-Weary, a longtime board member. Sid Meyer, the chair of the Transportation and Public Safety Committee. Board member Hazra Ali, Dorothea Thompson Manning. Hello, Madison Chang. Hello, Esther Blount. Did I miss anyone? So, Mr. Sweeting, these are all board members that sit on other active committees of the board. So you have a wide swath of interests tonight.
Okay. So New York City by the numbers, let me just start with those. These are our short, quick, graphically oriented reports that try to ask a question and then answer it in 2 pages. So they're not, you know, a full-blown. Many of our reports can go on for 10, 20 pages, but these are supposed to be asking sort of small questions and presenting it in a way that's quite graphical. So this is every year on the website, we publish some very detailed tables on personal income tax liability. We have tax data. We receive tax data from the state Department of Taxation, so that we can do very detailed. It's basically every line on the tax return for all the city residents. So we can do very complicated analyses of trends in the income tax. And the income tax is the city's second largest revenue source, so it's a very important one. Anyway, this report, and again, we may have the problem of it's hard to see on your screens because it's a little bigger than the budget options, but it's still pretty small. But this report looked at some recent changes in income, in just the amount of income that people earn, or at least taxable income that they earn, and then also income tax liability, and some of the changes that you can observe. And a lot of this has to do, the changes that are highlighted here are in many cases the results of the federal income tax changes that were put through by President Trump and the Congress. So you can see, for example, that everyone's wage growth, wages were increasing for almost all tax filers in the city. But income from capital gains went down in the most recent year, that's 2019. That's largely, we think, again, related to timing. That were timing changes that were in response to the federal the change in the federal law in 2017. But there's a whole lot of information in here about how that's changed over time. And this is actually back to this looks at sort of the similar data that was presented earlier about employment and unemployment in the city. This is tracing out how much the city is lagging behind the US as a whole in terms of recovering from the COVID recession. Even if you can't read all the detail on there, you can see the shape. There's a huge drop at the beginning. The city employment went down about 60% at that point. And at the US, it was less of a decline, and we have not been able to close the gap since then. These numbers, I believe, are through September of 2021. I guess those numbers come out once a month, so we could update that for another month.
Now, Mr.
Anyway,
Sweeney, it's my understanding, excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. It's my understanding that we will not get back all the job losses even up until 2025. We'll still be lagging all the jobs that we lost from before the pandemic.
That was our forecast back in the summer. We're slightly more optimistic. It might be very late 2024, but it's still a number of years away.
And I also noticed, sir, that you mentioned that the majority of the people who filed are earning less than $40,000.
Yes. That those are the statistics. I mean, that's what the tax returns show.
Okay, thank you, sir. Because one of the things that we're looking at is affordable housing.
Mhm.
Okay, and if the majority of the filers are earning less than $40,000, and we need to have the affordable housing address those individuals rather than individuals who are making more than that, the majority of the filers are only making less than $40,000.
Yes, I mean, that's, and the city is putting significant money into building affordable housing, but I think almost everyone would agree they're not able to keep up with the demand. There will be lots of debate coming up this spring about whether to keep one of the tools the city uses to develop affordable housing, the 421A tax exemption, where developers get an exemption against their property tax bill if they agree to meet some standards on developing affordable, keeping a share of the units that they're developing affordable. And there are various combinations of how deep the affordability discount has to be and how many affordable units, and that trades off against different levels of tax exemption or different lengths of time that you get the tax exemption. But that bill is up for renewal this spring, and it's likely to spur a lot of debate and discussion about how we go about developing affordable housing and what's the most efficient way to do it.
Understood. Could you take a look at the public school indicators, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to switch over to that. Let's see. So again, off of our homepage, we have the public school indicators are here. And this is set out into different subjects. I'll just pull up the first one, which is student attendance. So, you know, it's we know the demographic information about each student, and then we also get data, for example, on attendance. We also get data on test scores and what courses, like in the high schools, we get data on whether students are taking Regents courses or non-Regents level courses, AP courses. So, you know, you can go through, there's you know, probably 50 different indicators that we have, both a mix of student achievement, student demographics, faculty demographics, and also spending and overcrowding in schools. These, for the most part, you can also download these, the data behind these charts in a spreadsheet form. We're actually making, it should be much better on the, we're going to post a new set of these in a week or so. It'll be even easier to grab the data if you like to be able to take a spreadsheet and do your own thing with it. But for example, this report is looking at attendance rates. So, you know, we start out looking by gender. Male students do not, you know, they have a somewhat lower attendance rate. They're at 90.9%, whereas females are 91.6%. And you can go on and look at, you know, all different, lots of different ways of categorizing students and, you know, seeing where there are differences by student demographics in terms of all of these different indicators. So here we go. This one looks at, this is looking at performance on the state tests by different groups. We also look at it by traditional public schools, and then we also have the data for the charter schools. So that's there if anyone wants to look at that. And as I said, it's organized into sections. The first part is about the students, then there's faculty, budget, and capital stuff. And we are, as I said, we will be publishing a new set of these with I guess with the 2019-2020 school year data. There's a little bit of a lag in getting this data from the Department of Ed, but it's still pretty current. So. Other questions?
Well, we've been doing this for about an hour. I got to be honest with you. When I saw your website, I was on this website for hours.
Good to know.
Okay, we could have literally a presentation that go on for a week, and we still wouldn't get all the information of this here. One of the things I want to basically ask you is, is there a way of getting this broken down to not just borough but by district?
Very good question. Well, the school data we can do by community school district. You know, obviously that doesn't line up exactly with the community boards. So, and a lot of this data actually is, you know, as you go deeper into the indicators, some of it is presented at the district level. One of the, you know, we frequently get asked questions about, you know, are the parks in this district getting more spending than parks in other districts, or what's the performance on well, actually sanitation we can do a little bit, but there are many parts of the city budget that actually aren't tracked geographically. It's an issue with because there are clearly differences across the city geographically, in terms of the services that are provided. Parks, for example, a lot of their spending, even though it's local spent, it's very localized, a lot of it is budgeted at the central level or at the borough level, so that you don't, you can't really get in and say, this is exactly what's being spent at parks in this district versus parks in another district. Sanitation, you can do a little bit because the sanitation districts tend to line up with the community boards pretty well. So you can do it for some, but not as much as any of us who study this stuff and work on it would like. The school districts are the ones where you can drill in pretty close, pretty tightly. I would say, actually, I mean, the other big exception are the property taxes. We work with data from the Department of Finance that's got every single property, so you can easily figure out differences in tax burden from one district to another, or one neighborhood to another. You could even do it by census tract. And we can do that because the underlying data comes to us literally at the parcel level. You can group it up however you're interested in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I got to be honest with you, sir. When I looked at this website, I saw information about parks. I saw information about transportation. I saw information about land use, vacant lots, public lots. I saw information in regards to schools, population, how long teachers have actually stayed at the same location after they graduate. You broke it down to information that many of the different committee members or committee chairs are dying to see and have not been able to find this information. And this is available to everyone, every committee here. And I wanted to make sure that all the committee members and all the different chairs were available to hear this information, because they can actually go to the website and they can find out a lot of this information for themselves. Sir, I'm going to end the actual presentation right now and allow people to ask questions. First individuals, I will allow the chairs of other committees to ask questions first. Barbara?
Thank you. I put a question in the chat. My question is, what types of, you mentioned the community boards have asked you to do reports on various things. I was wondering, what kinds of things have you heard, gotten requests from community boards for? Maybe it can inspire us.
Some of it is basic information, either pointing you to data that's already on the website, or figuring out a way that we could measure something or help you measure something. But we get a fair amount of requests about, or mostly, I think it's more around the capital side than the spending side. We get a fair amount about investment in housing, rezoning questions. But as I said, we often don't get as many questions from you and your colleagues as we do from, say, council members. And that's one of the reasons I jumped at this invitation, because we would like to be of assistance to you if we can. We were created to help the people involved in the city budget do their job better. And obviously you and your colleagues play a large role in it. So we're happy to take your question. We may not be able to answer them, but we'll tell you what whether we can. and and talk through maybe there's a alternative way of getting at what you're looking for. But a lot of most of the questions we get from boards are around the capital budget and capital investment.
Thank
Barbara,
you.
you have any other questions?
No, just that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions from the chairs? Okay, committee members, I'll open it up to you. Sierra, is that your hand raised?
Yes, it is. Very nice looking thumb. Mr. Sweeting, thank you for this really pack full of information that I think all of us are champing at the bit, hoping that we could participate and take some of that information and use it for our community. I think it's a great job that you're doing. I really compliment the office tremendously. It was a revelation for me, actually. It was very good. Thank you, Bill. It was a great, a good invitation for us. I'm sure we're going to have you back again. I have a couple of questions. Just a quick one. Your position is, are you, does the mayor appoint you, or are you?
We are, the director is appointed by a committee of 4 elected officials. It's the speaker, the public advocate, the controller, and one of the 5 borough presidents. And there's a very convoluted process for identifying the speaker, the director. There's an advisory board of people that make recommendations to those 4 electors. The director serves a fixed 4-year term, and basically can't be removed except for gross malfeasance. So the idea is to create something that's very independent from the mayor. We also get our budget is defined in terms of the budget for OMB, so that the mayor can't punish us by cutting our budget if they don't like the work we're doing. And there have been times that there were mayors that really did not like the work we were doing and tried to get us eliminated. So we get 12.5% of OMB's budget.
So you work independently. That was my question.
Yeah.
And does your term end when the mayor, when the mayor's term ends, or doesn't?
No,
work?
well, first of all, I'm the deputy director, so it's not
Okay,
my
well, the
term, but
deputy, well, okay.
The director's term, it's actually, for some bizarre reason, this is how it was written into the charter, ends on July 31st. So that the current director, her term is up July 31st. And, although she's been reappointed several times, so she may, who knows what's going to happen.
Thank you. We had a meeting at our committee. We had 2 issues that we were discussing, and maybe we could take some of that information from your office. We were wondering about what the effect of the closings of small businesses in our district, in our community board area, due to COVID, and how it affected them, and if there was some sort of a scale or a recap or some information you could give us on how they were affected, and are they still affected, or are we getting some back vis-a-vis the end of COVID? Is that possible to get from your office?
I'm not sure if we could get it at the sort of the business level, but I can think one way you could come at it, and we've done this with other people, is if you go back to the employment data and you look at employment by sector, and one of the sectors is retail trade, and there are actually, you can even break it down smaller than that. There's retail food, retail, personal services, the whole set of different job categories there. And one of the things we find, retail was really badly hit by COVID, and it's one of the areas that even as the city lags overall in its recovery, retail is one of the areas that's lagging even the rest of the city in terms of recovery. So that's not a perfect answer to your question, but let me see if some of our tax people have some access to.
It would be very helpful because we've had a tremendous amount of closings in all the areas of our districts. That was something that we'd like, if you can do that, that we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, I had one more question, Mr. Chairman. Do you do anything or do you survey startups, new businesses? Can we look at that issue in our area? Does that get focused where we have new startup businesses in, for instance, in our community board district? Is that ever a possibility?
That's not something we've ever done anything about. I'd have to think about exactly how you would identify that. One of the, I guess you could look at licenses. If it's a business that needs a license from the city, there might be some data there, but that's not an area we've looked at. But the other thing with as I was saying earlier, I think a lot of the questions you'd want to answer require having the data at the individual business level or individual startup level, so that then you could figure out the geography, which planning district is it in, which school district is it in, whatever. So I'm not certain how much data is available sort of with an address that you could figure that out, but there might be something.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem, Mr. Scala. Ms. Einhorn, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. So another way to track the business data, I think, would be to look at the commercial rentals. And I was wondering if that might be possible. And I think, for the unemployment data, the most recent data that we can find, even at the borough level, is going to be for May. And so we're trying to find more recent data, as well as I think the district level is probably harder to ask for than by zip code. So we were wondering if we can get the breakdown by zip code, because I know that the zip codes overlap by district, but at least it would find us a better breakdown of some of the data we're looking for.
So on the commercial, let me start with the commercial data. I mean, there is no good, outside of Manhattan, there's no good source on commercial. I mean, there's information that market research people track. We generally don't have access to that because you got to buy it from them, and that's we have a comfortable budget, but it's not. Proprietary data gets expensive, but in Manhattan, where they have the commercial rent tax, you can use that as a tool to find things. But
what about vacancies? Does the city track vacancies?
The city does have there is a report that the finance department is required to compile. We've been asking them for the individual parcel level data on that, the individual business level data. So far, they haven't given it to us. All they have is they have the aggregate data. And there is some of it on there. If you go to the open data platform, there is some data that they've put out, some summary data that they've put out on vacancies, but it's not as detailed as you'd want in order to be able to get down to individual districts and neighborhoods. On the unemployment data, I think you could get, and I'll look at this, but I think you could look, you should be able to get, certainly at the city level and probably at the county level, unemployment data up through either September or October, from the State Department of Labor, and but we also have that and could share that with you. I mean, we just get it from the State Department of Labor, but we have that. So I don't know, that might help you a little bit.
county level, but not at the zip code level.
I
correct?
don't, you're right. It's at the county level. It's not at the, but you can get it a little more recent than May. You can get it up to September or October.
Just so you know, the state and city websites only have on their websites through April right now.
Okay.
And the
Um,
federal labor as well only has from census, so.
Right. But they do release I mean, there's a monthly release from the state, or from the BLS, that has it.
Any other
If
questions?
you, I
Ms.
don't know,
Howard?
if you want to send me your email or whatever, I could help point you towards that.
Thanks, I'll put it in the chat for you.
Okay.
Ms. Morales, I see your hand raised.
Yes, good evening, everyone. The question I have is, does your office, as you know, each city agency gets funded, does your office, as we know, some agencies get funded more than others. So Park is one of the most underfunded, last I heard, out of all city agencies, and they do need money. Does your office list like the funding of each agency and from highest to lowest, and on top of listing the funding, like why they should get the pros and the cons of it being, you know, the funding amount?
Yeah. We do have data going back to 1980 on our website for every agency's budget. But it's, so it shows the funding that they're getting, and a little bit on the different programs within the agencies. We don't do any formal statement of, this agency should have more, this agency should have less. As I said before, first of all, we don't make policy recommendations, so we don't offer that judgment. We leave it for other people to take the information and do what they want with it. We have at times when we get a specific question, is park spending fairly distributed or evenly, appropriately distributed across the city? It's been a while since we did one of those, but I think, we have done that in the past. And, then we don't say this is, they're spending too much or not enough. We say, looked at this way, per capita of the surrounding neighborhood, this much is being spent, at each of these parks. And we'll look at, I guess we look at per capita by the neighborhood, we look at density of the neighborhood, those kinds of questions. And again, it's presenting information that other people can use. But we don't say, they're doing it right or they're doing it wrong.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from any other committee members? Okay, any questions from anyone from the community board? From the public at large? Okay. Mr. Sweeting, thank you very much for that presentation. I will be honest with you. I hope to see you here again as often as possible. Okay, the information you gave us is just a tip of all the information that's available. I was actually fascinated about reading about Gramercy Park. Okay, and it goes, I mean, the information you give us is something that every committee can use. I'm going to repeat this over and over again to the committee members, okay, because every committee can use resources that you have available to us. And I find that it's a resource that I didn't realize was available. And it's a resource that you take a neutral stand, which I find very important. Okay, and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Okay.
We'll do some outreach to you, and thank you very much. If you want to, you can stay here for the rest of the committee meeting. It will be short, however.
Okay, I think I've got some other things I've got to take care of, but thank you very much for the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation, and you know, we exist to help you. So you know, feel free to contact us and see what we can do for you.
Thank you very much for the invitation, sir.
Okay,
We will be doing that.
take care.
Okay, next on the agenda is the chairperson's report. Currently, right now, there is nothing else that I'm looking at as far as the chairperson's report. We have some items that we're going to be looking at probably starting in January. I gave a list of presenters that I wished to have present to our committee to Ms. Mueller. Okay, I think she'll take a look at them and see what we can do. Today's presentation, I didn't expect it at all, but she did manage to do it. So I was very impressed. So if there's anything else that anyone else would like to bring up as far as other committee business, now's the time to do that. Any other committee okay, Ms. Morales?
I have a question in reference to the community statement is the budget. And as far as state funding, is it the right time to ask now? I'm sorry. I have a.
Sure, by all means, ask.
Okay,
That's what
so
this is for.
as most, yeah, I'm sorry, I have a headache, so bear with me, I'm a little out of it. I know that there are things that come up on the community statement of needs every year, things that get accepted or funding. And so, as all of you know, that outside of here, I work for the state senator now. And I do know that there is $2 million for this next budget season, which starts in January, I believe, for the senator to distribute to different city agencies that are in need, and 500,000 for like CBOs. It's more around infrastructure. So how can we, like, I think about like how so many things come up that we recommend on the community statement of needs that never get the funding. Who would then, would it be the community board advocating to the senator for money? Or would it be the community board recommending to, I'm just coming up with parks is on my mind, but you know, we want something from parks that never gets funded. Does the community board tell parks to apply for it to fund specifically what the community board wants? How would that process go? Because I know there's this money coming down the line and that a senator will be looking at, you know, making sure that as many like CBOs and then city agency know that this money is available for folks to apply and spread it out evenly or by priority needs. So just wanted to share that with you guys, that and just thinking that through. As a community board, what can we do? Because it's not only him, we have what, 2 senators in our district? So they'll both be having this type of funding. And so how can we advocate?
Okay, that's a good question. One of the things that I'm looking to do, or I believe the executive committee might be looking to do, is to actually get together ideas such as this. The items that we actually put on the district statement of needs, we may want to also try to pinpoint, okay, recommendations, okay, and also get CBOs to actually join in with us to actually support that. Okay, so the first item we have to do basically is find out what we think we need in the district. And once we identify that need, also give a reason for why the need is why we actually do need it, and actually put that in writing and be very clear about it. In the district statement of needs, we can't be that concise. It's very general. But if we can be a little more, have a statement that's, 1 page that can actually be a little more specific of why that need is and who it actually helps, I think that'd be beneficial. And then if we can actually present that to the full board and have the full board back that recommendation, then we can then address it to the actual individual members of whoever, the senators or the assemblymen, whoever you want to address it to, that could actually fund this. And just to let you know, I believe some of the funding is listed on the website that we just had a presentation about. Ms. Taya, do you have any comments that you also want to add to that? No? Okay. Ms. Gilman.
I was just gonna jump in, Maisha, that's such an exciting way to think about it. I think especially on the back of all of the work everyone's done on the statement of needs, and to feel like it so often sits there and it's so hard to know what's gonna come of it, to be like, we've already generated so much information across all of the community board committees. And if we can basically just tweak the formatting, like Bill's saying, and make it a little bit more specific so that these representatives can care about it the way that we care about it, I feel like that would be such time well spent. And Bill, you're saying the executive committee might be the smartest place just because it's going to go across all of these committees and we want to be on the same page about what we're kind of lobbying for and not kind of infighting between everybody. So I mean, whatever help you all need to that end. But I think if we send it, obviously Maisha to the senator, to the state senator, and then to whoever else is soliciting, if that's going to happen in January, that means that that's something we should be sending them in the next couple weeks in order to actually like make use of the time budget wise. So I'm curious if we took, you know, a top skew of items that are most important, or how we want to go about that. But whatever we can do to keep ourselves on time to be on their page with good info.
I believe that has been itemized already in the district statement of needs. The top 3, top 5, top 10 has already been, we voted on already. Ciro?
So we could basically send it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can reach out to the different committees and ask if they want to actually have any input in this. I'll have to discuss it with the board office and how we would actually do it as far as the mechanics are concerned.
Yeah.
Ciro?
At our last meeting, we discussed the closings of small businesses, and I think Lindsay and I talked about it. And I reached out to quite a few of the bids and the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. I just want to let the committee know that I did get 2 emails back, one from Fab and one from the Myrtle Avenue bid. So I'm trying to follow up on the others. And if I compile them, they just sent me lists of in their fiscal year of what how many stores closed, how many businesses closed in their community. So I'll put it together, and maybe by next meeting I'll have it more compact. I didn't get all the answers yet, but I just want to let you know that I am working on it.
You want to give us a quick overview of what you've seen so far?
It seems like the Fab sent me like their fiscal year. He says below is a list of businesses in the Fulton Street bid that closed since July 2019. We track by fiscal years. Let me know if you have any further questions. And he listed a whole mess of different small businesses. I could forward that to the office, and you can have that. There's a lot of different cafes and small businesses that closed in 2020, 2021, and various areas. On the Myrtle Avenue, I think he was a little Perky. He was optimistic about the future, about the stores, and he didn't give me a list of them, but he sent me a couple of paragraphs of what he sees happening and what's opening and what's closing. So I have to put them a little bit together in a more compact manner. But I only have 2, and I think I reached out to 5.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scallop. Great work. Can you also determine if this is temporary closings or permanent closings?
I think they're permanent.
Ouch. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Other committee business? Yes, Ms. Gilman.
I also just wanted to say, I know it was quickly at the top of the meeting, but just thank you, Lindsay, for the research into those unemployment numbers. And I feel like we all talked about this the last time, but it feels like such a great way to bookend what we're doing and to keep our committee oriented. And if we add Ciro's research onto, closures, and hopefully IBO is a really good partner to us in that kind of access for some of this information. But thank you for kicking that off for all of us and doing the work to make it happen to the both of you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman, for making that comment. Okay, it is very important. Okay, we now move on to committee forum. Is there anyone who would like to discuss anything? Sorry, community forum, my apologies. Okay. We have one ATA Inc. Okay. With that,
This is Celeste. I'm part of your board.
oh, okay. Thank you, Celeste.
Hi, y'all. How you doing? I haven't been able to get on board, so I'm glad I'm able to get on board now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I didn't recognize the name ATA. Okay.
Thank you much.
Okay, with that, if there's no more business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Okay, Mr. Scala, Ms. Morales. Okay, all in favor, all who disapproves, let's put it that way. Okay,
Aye.
thank you very much. Okay, have a good
Good night,
night
all.
and
Have a good
happy
evening.
holidays if I don't see you at any of the other meetings.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.
Bye now.